Hey guys, so bog bodies. I told you I'd give you a little bit longer video on these, and here we are. I'm always really been intrigued by bog bodies, bodies that are found in bogs. So a bog is a wetland that accumulates peat as a deposit of dead plant materials like moss, typically sphagnum moss. It occurs when the water at the surface gets all acidic and it's low in nutrients, and then peat forms when plant material doesn't fully decay and it packs in together and it creates this big, heavy, kind of like soil, but not even really. And it's pretty dang shallow, like only 3 to 8 meters at most. So it's this low wetland with the perfect acidic festering situation for bodies to get preserved naturally in. It's phenomenal. I love it. So bog bodies are naturally preserved human remains that are found in peaty wetlands, particularly in places like bogs, where you've got these deep layers of peat and they form this acid that preserves things that are organic. Ding, ding, ding. That's our bodies. So mosses and heaths are the main plants. Layers of dead plants build up to form that peat, and it's used for fuel. So animals don't exist there usually. There's no animal activity because there's nothing to feed them. For them, it's hard for them to survive there. So you have people who farm the peat for these fuel sources. They go in and they actually cut these sections out. And as they dry them, then they're used to fuel. It's a pretty amazing thing, but these farmers are who are finding these bodies. These bodies that are just out in the bog. Now, bogs exist in different countries, predominantly Denmark, Ireland, Germany, Netherlands, Scotland, England, and some in Sweden, and even in the US. Did you know there's bogs here in the US? So dead people found in a peat bog are mummified and they're preserved perfectly. And when first discovered, people thought that they were recent murder victims. But as they got in there and started looking, they're like, wow, these bodies are actually hundreds of years old. The oldest bog body that has been found dated to 8,000 BC. 8,000. Like that's a long time ago. That body was in Denmark. Many have been found from the 12th century, the Iron Age. And there's actually been a few Russian soldiers from World War II that were found in Poland in bogs there. So why are these bodies here? Did people just die and fall into a bog? Or was this like someone's way of disposing of a body, thinking they would never be found? So archaeologists have really dove into this. And there is some fascinating history and culture within these bodies. So some of these bodies have been sacrifices to get better crops for their village, or get better weather, or just get blessed, their village to get blessed. According to a National Geographic magazine article, victims may have been killed to appease the fertility goddesses that Celtic and Germanic peoples believed held the power of life and death. It could have happened one winter after a bad harvest. People were hungry, reduced to eating chaff and weeds. They believed that one of their number had to die so the rest could survive. There's all sorts of reasons that they're finding that maybe a king from their village or the hierarchy gives their life for their village. So it's not just grab a peasant and throw him in the bog. The highest seated person within the hierarchy of the village might be the one who died and put themselves out there to be sacrificed. Some of the bodies went through quite brutal deaths, being tortured before their sacrifice. Some of them were found with poles stuck through their body to hold them into the bog. And they were alive when left. So there's all these things, all these scenarios that played out, not just, hey, grandma died, we're going to put her out in the bog. So Wikipedia talks about how highly acidic water, low temperature, and a lack of oxygen preserve but severely tan the skin of these bodies. While the skin is well preserved, the bones are generally not, due to the dissolution of the calcium phosphate of the bone by the acidity of the peat. The acidic conditions allow for the preservation of skin, hair, nails, wool, and leather, which all contain the protein keratin. But the bones don't hold up. So you get this skin sac that is all preserved a lot of times. Nautilus says the bogs work their magic upon the flesh through the action of a long-chained molecule called cephagnin, found in decaying peat moss. Cephagnin reacts with enzymes secreted by putrefying bacteria, preventing the microbes from breaking down organic matter. At the same time, cephagnin, which try saying cephagnin, it's such a funky word, leaches calcium from the bones, leaving them bendy and dissolving them. And because peat moss also contains a humic acid, which pushes water from soft tissue, the skin steeped in bog water turns to this bronzed hide. So I'm going to be showing you guys pictures. These pictures are unbelievable. These bodies are thousands of years old and they're preserved. You can see hair from whiskers and pores and lines and wrinkles, and it's amazing. Even the best preserved bog body emerge looking like golems, rudely crafted from leather and mud, and they usually have this bright red hair because it takes on the stain from everything going on in the bog. So a lot of these bodies have this bright red hair, which is quite magical looking, if you can say that. So here in the US, the peat at the Florida sites is loosely consolidated and much wetter than in European bogs. As a result, the skeletons are well preserved, but skin and most internal organs have not been preserved. An exception is that preserved brains have been found in nearly 100 skulls at a site in one of the several burials at Little Salt Spring. Textiles are also preserved. So in Florida, a 7,000-year-old presumed peat pond burial site, the Manasota Key Offshore Archaeological Site, has been found under 21 feet of water near Sarasota, like 7,000-year-old. That's just so old when you really look at everything. Archaeologists believe that early archaic Native Americans buried the bodies in a freshwater pond when the sea level was lower, and the peat in the ponds helped preserve the skeletons. What? Now, there's one other thing to talk about with bog bodies. You ready for this one? Bog butter. People used to store their butter in the bog to keep it fresher longer. So according to the journal.ie, a new study has now revealed, and who are these people studying butter that's buried in a bog? A new study revealed that the indigenous practice dates back nearly 4,000 years. The bog's preservative powers are so strong that butter can still be edible after centuries in the ground, thanks to the cool, low oxygen, and a high acid environment. Let's take a poll. Would you eat bog butter that had been in the ground like 4,000 years? Would you eat anything coming out of the ground after a year? Would you try that? Or not including like vegetables that are meant to grow in the ground. But if someone took butter, stuck it in a bog, and and then pulled it out 4,000 years later, would you put it on some toast? Would you do that? No, no is my answer. Does anybody answer yes? Who answers yes? It's like on Fear Factor when they used to make you eat those petrified duck eggs or whatever they were, and they were so disgusting, but bog butter. So Bog Bodies, unbelievably phenomenal. I would love to see one in person, love to like touch and just see, and just magical. But it's just amazing what happens in this natural occurring preservation. But no to the butter.